Hey everybody, we are working on this lovely mare's feet today. She is a spotted draft horse, so she has big plattered out draft feet. And we've already cleaned up her frog and her bars, and we've done a nipper run around the outside of the wall. So we've kind of done like a rough cleanup of her foot. But what I wanted to show you today is how to do the technique called slippering heels. And this is what you would do when the horse's heels are curling in at the back and not necessarily contracted, not necessarily crushing, although this technique is good for that as well. But it's a way to uncurl the tubules of the heels without lowering the heel height, because so often we're taught that when you want to straighten heels, you bring them back and lower them. And the problem with that is that it ends up lowering your heel height and lowering your palmar P3 angle. And when that heel height gets too low, you end up compressing the heel arch, and less blood perfuses the heels, which doesn't help the back of the foot to get stronger. So I like to do something called heel slippering instead, which is where we uncurl the tubules in the collateral groove. Do not mistake this for the Strasser technique opening cuts. Opening cuts, you would go down at a 90-degree angle and actually carve out the horn at the bottom of the collateral groove, as well as the hook on the inside of the heel. We're not doing that. All we're doing is opening the tubules, trimming the tubules of the heel on the inside, so that when they're loaded with hoof pack and they're loaded with any kind of soft footing that deforms into the foot, it's going to encourage those tubules to now be stimulated to grow out, as opposed to when they are curling and the ground interacts with them, they're just going to be continue to fold in. So I'm going to show you on Maud, because she has quite the hook to her heels. The other nice thing about this is that it gets the base of support of your heel back to the widest part of the frog without lowering your heels. So it kind of achieves two different things. It uncurls the heels, and it also brings the support pace back when you have underrun heels without lowering the heel height, because now the foot's going to be loaded at the back more appropriately. More of that heel is going to get load. So let's see what you think. We map them and then we trim them. All right. So Maud's foot, she has some thrush, and we've opened that and we're going to treat that. And she has, some breaks in her bars. We're going to trim the bars a little more and we'll finish the wall. But in order to see this area clearly, you know that I want to exfoliate that part of the foot. So I would take my knife and I would just get rid of some of this exfoliation back there, so I can see, there's my live sole, that's the waxy sole, so I can see where the true back of my foot is. And, her foot's nice and hard, but has some distortion. So we're putting some effort into trimming this lump of bar that she grows because she's a heavy horse, and this little bit of a pocket in her bar from her bar getting long and laying over, and again being a heavy horse, she's going to distort these bars a lot, her weight just coming down on them. So if I clean this up so that it follows, now you can see that's all waxy sole, and you can see she actually had quite the pocket here with a bruise at the bottom because it had gotten this hard lump. So I'm not going to dig that as a hole to china, but I am going to clean it up and straighten it so that it's not putting pressure. And then we're going to do that to the other heel as well. So over here, this sole at the seat of corn, we want to see where this is so we can accurately see our junction of sole to white line. So we're not following distorted quarters, because she gets these big flares being a heavy horse. You can see she's got a little bit of a pocket of yuck there at the back, and that's exacerbated by these curling heels. See how her heels are curling in like this. So just finishing cleaning that up. Now, you'll notice I'm running into my heel purchase. So this wall is curling over, and it actually creates a pocket way back here. Her seed of corn keeps going all the way under there. And so on the other side, it's still chalky up there. Way up in there, it's still chalky. See that up in there? And that actually will create what we call a corn. which is where this heel rolling over and the bar bends out because it's kinking. Bars get long and they bend and they lay over. And that's because of the bar swells that are on the coffin bone. That bony protrusion where the bar laminae attaches and then the deep digital flexor tendon comes in and attaches. So bars cannot really run forward. They can get long and then they bend because they stop at the body of the coffin bone. They bend and they lay over. And then this is curling over this way. These heels are curling over this way. So this whole thing is doing this, and this section under here, under this heel, gets compressed. And that's why we get a corn from pressure. On a shod horse, they can get a corn if there's inappropriate pressure on the seat of corn as well, but that's a different causation. So let's map our heels here to see where we might slipper. Hang on, Maud. You're being a very good girl. So when you slipper heels, you can find a fulcrum on the back of the heel. See how this tubule right here is like frayed and rough and actually has a groove to it. So we're actually going to draw a line on that. And if you can't see it, sometimes you can feel them. And there's one here on the other side as well. Hang on, I've got a little mud right there. Get rid of that. Yep. There's one right here, if you can see that. If you can't see it, you can feel it. Notice that I've cleaned up my mud flaps of my frog. We call these mud flaps. That overgrown part of the frog in the back here, that's just excess frog. So I've cleaned that so I can see the architecture of my heels more clearly. So I'm going to draw that line first. That's a turning point. Now there's another one way up here, but I don't want to slipper her that aggressively, even though, yes, this is curling. I'm going to choose to use this one today just to leave her a little bit more of this wall while we're rehabbing her frog. Then I'm going to look at the bar swell here and my bar swell here. And this is part of our mapping protocol. So go and review that if you're not familiar with where the bar swells are. And the bar runs this way. So I'm going to draw a line from where that fulcrum is to my bar swell, and from here to my bar swell, like that. And you need to slipper the heels to the other side of that fulcrum. So what's going to come off is from that line, we draw a diagonal down to the bottom of the collateral groove on this side, from where that bar line meets the fulcrum down to the base of the collateral groove. We're not going to cut, Maud, just wait, you're being a good girl. We're not going to cut all this out, okay? That would be indecorium and would cause problems. We're just going to take, and you can see there's evidence of the old heel slipper on here a little bit from the last time I was here. We're just going to take this out, that part from this line up here through here. So this is going to come out. So we're going to straighten the bar, and we're going to relieve all this on an angle, on this angle. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can do that. The first way you can do that is I like to use a straight nipper, and I put my nipper on that line, that diagonal line I drew between the fulcrum and the base of the collateral groove, and I start my heel slipper by nipping on that line. And it doesn't have to be completely deep enough, it just needs to be parallel to that to get it started. And the same on the other side. I'm going to put my nipper on the fulcrum line to the base of the collateral groove. See the line there? I'm going to put my nipper on that and nip on that angle. Hang on, Maud. Being a good girl. Okay, so that's how I start it. Then I would take my rasp or my grinder, depending on what you guys like, and I'm going to rasp on that angle. Now, be careful not to gouge your toe callus because this short side of the rasp cuts. This little skinny side has a cutting edge. So I like to put my thumb with my glove over that so I don't accidentally cut my toe callus. And I'm going to just finish that all the way out to the other side. Okay, so see how now that diagonal line is to just on the other side of that fulcrum line. Same on this one. Okay, Mon. I know, you're being very good. Thank you. Everybody needs a break. I get it. On this side, okay, I'm going to put my rasp on that plane. I know it's a little dark under there. Make sure I'm not going to gouge the foot. and rasp it. And be aware that this part of the rasp is also cutting in your collateral groove. Okay, down here, see that? So be careful that you don't dig too deep. If you dig too deep here, it will bleed. And the frog is very vascular, and it's not a big deal. Just treat it to disinfect it, and it should stop pretty quickly, okay? I've done it by accident. Just be mindful of that. So now I'm just on the other side of that fulcrum with this plane, if you can see that. Okay, so there's my fulcrum line, and I'm just the other side of that. Now, Maud, wait, you're good. You're a good girl. The last bit we need to do here, can I have my half rounds? Thank you. Is take the hook out of the bar. And so you can do that with your half rounds like this, and see how that's going to straighten up that bar and take it through that seed of corn. And then I can finish it with my knife and get the rest of that chalk out of the seed of corn and uncurl this wall, because this wall is really curling over. And it's going to continue doing that as long as we allow it to do that by how it's loaded on the ground. Same thing over here. And you've got to take it through this curl if you have it. Some aren't this bad. Hers is pretty bad. Okay. Just follow that through. So you still have the height here. We haven't lost our heel height, but now all of this is straighter. So you can see we've opened up her heels on both sides in this heel slippering technique, and the bars are much, much straighter. Now you can see where the actual seed of corn is, here and here, because we're too waxy sole at that point. It was still chalky before, and you can see where she was getting pockets here in the heel quarters that were infected, and that's where horses get a lot of heel abscesses that break out here. So this technique preserves your heel height, uncurls your curling heels and the wall that's curling over the seed of corn without losing that height. So when this is loaded, those tubules are now receiving stimulation to come in straighter. And the corium underneath is curled as well. So not every horse is going to correct 100%, but this will absolutely help you in getting straighter bars, straighter heels, straighter tubules, and helping this frog recover as well. So I hope that's helpful, and you practice the idea of heel slippering and use it to see how you can manipulate the distortion in the heels without losing your heel height, so you're not lowering that palmar angle. Thanks so much. Bye.